Biomed Nexus. Daily updates. Your essential biotech, medtech, and pharma recap. No noise, just what matters. Executive takeaway. The FDA drew a hard line on gene therapy Monday, fully liberating Intellia's CRISPR pipeline from clinical holds while simultaneously enforcing a rigorous Phase 3 barrier for uniQure's Huntington's program, effectively ending hopes for a surrogate-only approval path in neurodegeneration. Elsewhere, Roche's fenebrutinib became the first BTK inhibitor to clear all Phase 3 hurdles in both relapsing and progressive MS, and United Therapeutics delivered blockbuster PAH data. The policy landscape also intensified as the ITC launched a probe into Chinese biotech practices, and mid-size biotechs formed a coalition to fight MFN pricing. Read full analysis. What to watch. Intellia enrollment. Velocity. Following today's full release of the FDA hold on the Magnitude trial, ATTR-CM, watch for a rapid enrollment ramp-up as the firm seeks to reclaim its lead over competitors in the in vivo CRISPR space. The BTK MS showdown, Roche's fenebrutinib. Phase 3 win marks the first time a BTK inhibitor has met all primary endpoints in relapsing MS without the liver toxicity profile that dogged earlier competitors. Expect a mid-year filing that challenges existing MS therapies. Huntington's market pivot. With uniQure forced into a multi-year Phase 3 for AMT-130, watch for capital to rotate toward antisense oligonucleotides, ASOs, and smaller cap oral modifiers that may now have a shorter relative window to market. ITC China probe. The new investigation into Chinese biotech state support could inform policy beyond the Biosecure Act. A public hearing is scheduled for May 2026. Today's top story: FDA rejects uniQure's early path. Intellia, CRISPR, hold, fully lifted. What happened? In a split-screen day for gene therapy, shares of uniQure, Curie, plummeted 40% after the FDA rejected its current Phase 1/2 data package for AMT-130 in Huntington's disease, demanding a randomized sham-controlled Phase 3. Conversely, Intellia Therapeutics, NTLA, shares rose as the FDA fully lifted clinical holds on its Magnitude and Magnitude-2 CRISPR trials following safety alignment on enhanced liver monitoring protocols. Why it matters. The FDA is drawing a hard line on regulatory flexibility. While it is willing to de-risk one-time editing platforms like Intellia's following liver enzyme clarifications, it is refusing to accept external natural history controls for complex neurodegenerative conditions like Huntington's. Executive impact. Gene therapy sponsors must now budget for full-scale Phase 3 sham-controlled trials as the surrogate data era for neuro indications undergoes significant regulatory tightening. uniQure plans a Type B meeting in Q2 2026 to discuss Phase 3 design. Oncology and rare disease, Ascendis Pharma, YuviWell launch. Market dynamics. Post-approval analysis suggests YuviWell, navapaglutide, could capture significant achondroplasia market share within 18 months due to its once-weekly dosing profile and clinical data showing benefits beyond linear growth. Viraxa Biotech, corporate. M&A, shareholders, approved the merger with Voyager Acquisition Corp at the Feb 27 EGM. The combined entity will trade on NASDAQ under VRXA upon closing, focusing on bispecific ADCs and T-cell engagers. Oncolytics Biotech, study launch. Trial initiation, launched the REO-033 randomized Phase 2 study in second-line KRAS mutant MSS metastatic colorectal cancer, building on February's fast-track designation. Preliminary data expected by year-end. Clinical and research updates, United Therapeutics, Reline-PAG. Data reported a 55% reduction in the risk of clinical worsening in its Phase 3 advanced outcomes trial for pulmonary arterial hypertension, PAH, with 80% of patients on dual background therapy at baseline. Signal: this is the first oral prostacyclin to demonstrate this level of durability, with once-daily dosing positioning ralinepag as a frontline challenger to J&J's Uptravi. NDA submission planned for 2H 2026, Roche fenebrutinib. Data, pivotal phase. 3 FENHANCE-1 results showed a 51% reduction in annualized relapse rates in relapsing MS versus teriflunomide over at least 96 weeks. Differentiator: liver enzyme elevations were comparable to the active control, potentially resolving the class-wide safety concerns for BTK inhibitors. Full data to be presented at AAN 2026. Long Biopharma LP003. Data announced head-to-head Phase 2 superiority against Novartis's Xolair in chronic spontaneous urticaria, demonstrating 860-fold greater IgE binding affinity. Signal: if Phase 3 confirms these results, LP003 would become the first new anti-IgE drug launched globally in over 20 years. BLA submission to China's NMPA planned by Q3 2026. Corporate Development's Royalty Pharma, Asia expansion. Leadership: appointed Kenneth Sun, ex-Morgan Stanley, as SVP and Head of Asia, effective May 2026, to spearhead expansion into the 130B+ Asian drug royalty market. IQVIA, Charles River. Integration: IQVIA's agreement to acquire select discovery assets from Charles River Labs is expected to close in Q2 2026, adding 5 in vitro drug discovery sites and a small molecule AI platform. BioAtla restructuring. Distress: announced a 70% workforce reduction and formal strategic review process to explore asset sales. The company reported just 7.1 metas cash at year-end and faces an ongoing NASDAQ listing review. Policy and Public Health ITC probes China biotech practices. Investigation: the U.S. International Trade Commission initiated a fact-finding investigation into Chinese state support and pricing practices in biotechnology, genomic sequencing, synthetic biology, API manufacturing. Signal: the investigation marks a significant escalation in U.S.-China biotech decoupling efforts and could inform future restrictions beyond the existing Biosecure Act framework. Mid-size biotechs form MFN Coalition. Advocacy: 10 domestic biotechs, including Alnylam, BioMarin, and Neurocrine, launched the Mid-sized Biotech Alliance of America, MBAA, to oppose the Most Favored Nation drug pricing policy, warning it could destroy biotech innovation. Signal: the MBAA fills an advocacy gap between PHRMA and BIO, representing firms that face existential risk from blanket pricing mandates that larger pharma can absorb. FDA Commissioner defends rare disease rejections policy. Commissioner Marty Makary defended the agency's approach to rare disease approvals, referencing a gene therapy involving drilling a burr hole with no observed benefit, widely interpreted as a critique of uniQure's AMT-130. Signal underscores continued FDA skepticism toward invasive gene therapies relying on external control data. State of the Union Healthcare Recap. Overview: President Trump touted lower prescription drug prices and his proposed Great Healthcare Plan, urging Congress to codify MFN deals, though he introduced few new healthcare policies or implementation details. Congress approves $315 million ALS funding. Congress greenlit a historic $315 million in federal ALS research funding for 2026, coinciding with Vector Y Therapeutics dosing its first patient in the TDP-43 targeting Pioneer ALS trial. Read full analysis Biomed Nexus Pro Institutional Intelligence brief in today's Pro Brief, the sham control. Re-rating: why the FDA's uniQure rejection alters the probability of success for the entire CNS gene therapy pipeline. Intellia, NTLA, risk framing. We model the commercial ceiling created by the FDA's new liver safety caveats. China decoupling accelerates How the ITC probe and the new MBAA coalition create a two-front policy battle for domestic biotechs. Upgrade to Pro. Today read, full article. Selective 2026 sponsorship placements are available. Reply directly to discuss a partnership or submit an inquiry here.